a place you do not know.
No, except of the fact that today is the first candle of Hanukkah, and you still have a few hours, but I already have my Hanukkah here with me. Okay, I hope you can see it. Well, oh no, I see that it's problematic because of the virtual background, but okay, here it is. This is my Hanukkah. We just lit the candles, which I bought exactly a year ago in Tzfat on one of the tours. And I'm glad I bought an extra pack because today that it would not be possible because everything is closed because of lack of tourists. And so happy Hanukkah to all of you. And let's start our tour of the Negev Desert. Now, just before we start, it's funny because the Negev Desert is huge. I mean, well, relatively huge. Okay, that's about half of the size of the state of Israel, so that's relatively big. And I call this tour the best of the Negev Desert. So a few days ago, when we went to make the filming, Noam and myself and my husband, which joined us this time, so that was almost a full family trip. So Noam asked me, where are we going? And I said, well, we are going to Tel Sheva and Ben Gurion Desert home and the tomb of Ben Gurion. And Noam looked at me and he was like, this is your best of the Negev? And I was, well, that's relative, that depends for whom. But that made me thinking that, the Negev Desert has more than one presentation, which it deserves, and quite a few other best of the Negev Desert. So anyhow, I would like to say already that we are going to tour Tel Sheva and, around Ben Gurion. But sometime later, we will have the best of the Negev part 2. And then we will be looking at some beautiful natural sites and formations and isolated farms and some other places. Okay, so this is only the beginning. And well, as usual, if you have any questions, you're welcome to write on chat. I will look at it in the end of the presentation. If there is an emergency, so unmute yourself and talk to me, please. And donations are appreciated as always. And let's get started. So, oops, wait, yeah. Okay, just to prove how big the Negev Desert is. So here on the left, you can see the physical map of the state of Israel. You see here, oh, I lost the annotation. Okay, let's annotate it again. It doesn't want to be annotated for some reason. Okay. See here on the left up there, this is the border between Israel and Lebanon, goes all the way up the finger of the Galilee, so-called, and then east, and this are the Golan Heights, and then the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea, okay? Now this part of this darker triangle, which goes all the way down to Eilat, to the Red Sea, this is the Negev. Okay, and this is more or less starts at Beersheba, okay, more or less, because the definition of the desert depends on the amount of rainfall. And since, rainfall differs from one year to the other, so that's more or less. It's a bit north of Beersheba. So as you can see, we're talking about 50% of the Israeli territory, that's the Negev Desert. And if we take a look to the right, so here, up here, this is Beersheba. If you read Hebrew, that's fine. If you don't, so we have this mark. This is Tel Sheva. This is where we are starting. And from Tel Sheva, we will be driving down south, more or less straightforward, to Sde Boker. And in Sde Boker, we are going to visit two sites, the desert home and the tomb. And some other time, we will be exploring the southern part, which is around here, more or less around Mitzpe Ramon. If you ever been to the Negev Desert, especially if you came with me on a BFI class advanced tours. So we stayed in Mitzpe Ramon, and Steve, you remember that, I'm sure about it. Yeah, and we already been to down south in Eilat. Okay, So having this definition, well, we start driving, and we normally stop for a coffee in Aroma. Again, Steve, Ilana, yeah, if we have other participants, you might recognize. This is the Aroma where we normally have coffee and a sandwich on our way south or back north. It's located in a Beit Kama junction, so that's what it's called, some half an hour north of Beer Sheva. And we keep driving, and here we are at our first destination, and this is Tel Sheva. Okay, that's the sign here. We take a left, and this is the national park. This is the archaeological site we're going to visit. But right next to it, I mean, we take a left here, but if we wouldn't take a left, right in front of us, we would see this sort of a gate. And that says, welcome to Tel Sheva. You see, this is Tel Sheva, and this is Tel Sheva. This is an archaeological site, and this is a Bedouin town, one of the 7 Bedouin towns which were established by the Israeli government during the 60s and 70s. This is a total different story, but we have to remember that we are surrounded by Bedouins from basically all sides. And the Bedouin population of the Negev is growing, and we're looking at about 180,000 Bedouins living in the desert. So here we are at Tel Sheva, and this is what we see first. Actually, this is the photo which was taken right there on site. And well, look at the first one up here, the most famous. These 7 lambs you shall accept from my hand. We are talking about the agreement between Abraham and Abimelech, king of Gerar. So they will be witness to me that I dug this well. Therefore, that place was called Beer Sheva, because they both of them swore an oath. That makes no sense in English whatsoever. And so we have to understand a little bit of Hebrew here, because 7 in Hebrew is Sheva. Be'er is a well. So Be'er Sheva means the well of the 7. Okay, but in the same time, swore is Nishba. To swear, Shvu'ah. So Be'er Sheva is the well of the 7. Okay, the 7 lamps. But this is also the well of where they swore. We have that double meaning here, and this is when and why Beer Sheva was called Beer Sheva, for both reasons here, and it is called Beer Sheva ever since. And as you know, this is one of the largest cities in Israel today, being the so-called capital of the Negev desert. So this is the first time we meet Beer Sheva. Later, we have Beer Sheva in another story which has to do with Isaac. And well, this time we read that Isaac, remember a few days ago we've been to Hebron, you saw the tomb of Isaac. So here in Beer Sheva, he built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. See, once again, it's all about wells. And that's because we are in the Negev. This is something we definitely need. I mean, if you want to make a living in the desert, you have to have a well. So right in the entrance, we see that sign, again, Tel Sheva. Tel is a hill, but it's not a natural one. It's an archaeological one. Okay, so we have the Tel. If you see something called Tel, you automatically know that it's an archaeological site with quite a few layers to it. I mean, somebody built and somebody ruined, and somebody built and somebody ruined, and eventually we have a hill. Okay, and this is a World Heritage Site, no more, no less. And these are the flags we see on top of it. And here we have a little 3D model. You see here on the left, we have a little hill with this various strata, with these different layers of creation and destruction. We will see one of the layers which was reconstructed. And as you can see, well, I would like you to notice basically 2 things. One is that this hill is surrounded by 2 river beds, okay? One coming from the north, the other one coming from the south. Okay, it is surrounded by two riverbeds, and I'm calling it a riverbed because most of the time it is dry. You know, we have these weird Israeli rivers which don't have water in them. Okay, that's not how we normally have rivers, and therefore in Hebrew we have that term of Nahal Achzav, the disappointing rivers. So most of the time it's a dry riverbed. Once upon a time when you have flood, so then you're getting a river. And then all of a sudden we have a lot of water here. This is the northern river of Hebron, this is what it's called, and the southern one, which is called the riverbed of Beer Sheva. And then we have plenty of water, and the aquifer is very high. And then here, you see this blue dot, which I'm touching now, and so it becomes red. This is the entrance into the huge, incredible underground cistern, actually a system of cisterns, which we will be touring later. And that's what provided Tel Shiva with its significance and ability to live. So this is the two things I wanted you to see on this model. And here on the right, you see this is, again, this is just a picture. This is the reconstruction of the city as the archaeologists believe it looked like. We have one gate. This is the gate we will see in a minute. We're going to be walking into that gate. And you will see the wall partly restored on the right, surrounding, and we will be in that city soon. As we get in there, that's what you see. Well, I guess you all recognize this structure, but just in case you don't, this is an altar. We found quite a few altars of that kind. This is not the original one. This is the reconstruction. The original one is in the Israel Museum, which is another place we have to visit once upon a time. But anyhow, so the original one is in the museum, and the replica is here because it was found here in Tel Sheva, but it was not found right here. It was not found this way. Actually, this also was built around the 9th century BCE. So we are talking about the very beginning of the kingdom of Judea. And then at some point, for whatever reason, somebody decided that they should not have this altar any longer. And therefore they simply took it apart. You know, they took it one stone by the other. And in order to make sure that nobody will rebuild the altar, so they stick the stone into the wall which surrounded the city. Okay, and it was lost and forgotten. And only a few decades ago, when the archaeologists excavated Tel Sheva, one of them noticed that, hey, you see, we have all these stones in the wall, but every now and then there is a different looking stone, which is huge stone, which is a bright stone, definitely different. And so they walked around the wall, they picked all these stones, and they reconstructed the altar. The explanation is that there used to be an altar parallel to the temple in Jerusalem. And then at some point, either Hezekiah or Josiah, one of these righteous kings, they decided to focus the entire worship in Jerusalem and to destroy the other altars which were used around their kingdom. So we know that story from Arad, and we have that story in Tel Sheva as well. So, you know, we are looking at the replica of the reconstructed altar, which was used by our ancestors around the 9th century BCE. Okay, this is quite amazing, I believe. So we are walking uphill. You see this plain of Beer Sheva here. This is the dry riverbed of Beer Sheva, and we're walking uphill towards the gate leading into the city. Just before we enter the city, this is what the unauthorized Bedouins dwellings look like. We saw this gate leading into Tel Sheva, which is an authorized town with electricity, running water, schools, etc. But all around it, we have these dwellings, these shacks, which belong to Tel Sheva, but they're outdoors. And this is something which is very typical to the Bedouins in the Negev. Again, this is a totally different topic, but you know, as I was looking at it, I thought that in the ancient times, if we look at the cities like Megiddo, like Hatzor, like Tel Sheva here, a tiny little well-fortified city, which was probably inhabited by the wealthy people, by the authorities, let's say, but most of the people lived outside, unprotected. And this is still true for the Bedouins. You know, as we look at the Bedouins, we can imagine how did our ancestors lived. And in front of the gate, and this is something really special, really unique. We have some explanations to it, but we don't really know. Outside of the gate, totally unprotected, we have a well. You see here right in the middle, that well was restored, but this is the original, the ancient well. And from that well, you could take water by buckets, maybe leather buckets, like here on this picture. And then the water would be flowing down this canal to water the cattle. Normally, the water will be inside the city, because inside a city, this is the most protected possession you have. This is the most important possession you have. But in this case, we have this incredible water supply system inside the city, protected by walls. And we also have a well outside. And, you know, as we look at this well, again, just the same phrase from the Bible, from the book of Genesis, we have found water. That's what the servant of Isaac told him. And there's nothing which can make you more happy than this. And the common explanation how come we have well outside of the city is because if you want to make a living, if you want to survive in the desert, you have to provide water for your neighbors. And then you will be nice to them, they will be nice to you, they will come for trade, they will bring you information, you will be good to them. So we have water inside, we have water outside. Just, again, makes sense. And finally, we are next to the gate. We are standing right here. You see that's us standing in front of the gate. The gate used to be protected from up here with watchtowers, as we see on this photo. The watchtowers did make it, and well, it is an open gate now. I would like you to pay attention to this street here, down here. You see that street? Okay. This is something we call the restoration line. Okay, this is something we have almost in every archaeological site. And this is something placed by the archaeologists for us to understand what was actually found, which whatever is below the line, and what was added by the archaeologists, okay, whatever is above the line. And obviously the restoration is made according to other finds in other places. So it is as accurate as possible. And what we see here, the lower part is stone made, while the upper part is made of clay bricks, just dried on the sun bricks. That's it. And this is how they would build the city walls, and this is how the entire city was built. So that's about time for us to enter the city. So you're welcome to follow me. As you see, we're not alone here, so I do have my mask. And yeah, it's a beautiful place. Yeah, so you just heard a little bit of noise. Actually, it's a bit of wind and some Israeli families. You know, most of us don't go abroad now because of the COVID, so we have more local tourists than we normally have. And this is the first time I saw actually people in Tel Sheva. It's not one of the major tourist sites. And I've been there a few times before, and me and my group were the only ones here. But now, as you can see, we have some company. And well, we just entered the gate. We walked through this intermediate area, something you could see in Megiddo and in Tel Dan, if you've been there with or without me. This is the intermediate part where if the enemy enters, so you have another chance to stop him, because we had another gate right here. You see, I'm standing actually in front of the second gate leading into the city. So if everything is okay, you're welcome to enter. And when there is no war, no problem, so this intermediate part would be used for trade. So we are in the city. We keep walking around, and you can see quite a few walls, quite a few structures. We're not 100% sure what is what and what is which. We do know that some of these are private houses. Most of it here, the long structures on the right and the long structure behind me here, these are the storehouses. If you've been to Masada, even though it's a different time frame, but these are probably the storehouses. Now, look at the sky behind me. I mean, I love this photo because you can see that it doesn't rain yet, but the clouds are quite dense and gray above me. And here behind me, a bit further down south, this is the south direction, you can see that the gray cloud touches the ground. So as we were looking at it, we were thinking like, it probably rains there. Will it rain here as well? Well, maybe, okay. It can be nice, you know, rain in the desert is quite a rare thing. And so we kept touring. You hear the wind. I don't mute it intentionally, and you see that the wind actually getting stronger. Okay, well, this part of the city is less populated by modern tourists, and so I took my mask off. I hate the mask, so whenever I couldn't get rid of it. And I'm standing now, you see we have something which looks here on the left, something which looks like a little, let's say, pillar made of stones, and behind it there is another little pillar made of stones. And these are the supporting pillars which used to support the roof above me. So there was a supporting system of pillars, 3 pillars here, and then a roof somewhere above me, and there was another wall here on my right hand side which was probably as high as this, and here we have another wall with some supporting pillars. The bottom line is that I'm standing now in something which is a very typical Israeli Jewish architecture, which is called the 4-compartment, 4-parts building. When you have a house which is divided into 4 parts, it's primarily Israeli Jewish, not 100%, but in most cases, if you see such an architecture, that means that we are in a, in the presence of the people of Israel. And behind me here, you can see a wall. Now you see on my right hand side, this is the reconstructed wall, which was made by the archaeologists from bricks, from clay bricks. I mean, they used the ancient technique, adding some modern glue to it so it will not melt, because in the ancient times, you see, this is the wall on my left hand side, and these are the same mud-made bricks which, they survived because the city was ruined, when the first temple was ruined, so that's about 26 centuries ago, let's say, but it was ruined and it was buried, so it was protected. Some 40 years ago, when it was excavated, it became exposed to the rain and it started simply melting. So what we see here are the ruins of the wall, and here we have the restored part of the wall, but that's the wall which actually protected Sheva or Be'er Sheva. By the way, the archaeologists are not yet sure whether this is Be'er Sheva, okay, the one with Abraham and Isaac, or this is Sheba, Okay, the problem is that in the book of Genesis, we have Sheva and Beersheba mentioned as one place, and this is the phrase we saw before. But in the book of Joshua, the border of the tribe of Simon described as a line which connects Beersheba, Sheba, and Moladah. Okay, therefore we have two different cities, okay? Beersheba and Sheba. So maybe this is Beersheba, maybe this is Sheba, not such a big deal for us. And anyhow, this is called Tel Sheva. And here in front of us and behind me, this is modern Beersheba. Okay, so some archaeologists believe that this is Sheva, and over there we do have an archaeological site inside modern Beersheba, which is ancient Beersheba, and the distance is about 3 kilometers, which is about 2 miles. Okay, so who knows? Anyhow, yeah. As I was standing over there, you know, just this very spot where we were standing before, I looked around and I could see this, and I mean, this is an amazing photo because you see, this is a bridge which holds the train, and down here, this is the dry riverbed. You can see that it's totally dry. The dry riverbed of Beersheba, the dry riverbed of Nachal, Beersheba, the creek. And this is a Bedouin family. You see now they're dressed nicely. They have a very modern, nice, quite expensive trolley for the baby. And this child holds the baby. And this is the mother, and you know, because it's a bit difficult to have the baby in the stroller here. And they're simply walking from Beersheba, which is about 2 miles away, as I said, to their home, which is somewhere here on the left in this unauthorized part of Tel Sheva. So they will be walking another, at least a mile. So, you know, but why not? We're walking, we are Bedouins. So this is something a Jew would not do, and that was so, you know, the most authentic. Okay, just a few more photos taken in Tel Sheva. Here on the left, you can see the same structures, which are probably storehouses. We have another house which is partly underground, because this is the modern level. I mean, modern is 9th century BCE, okay, for the matter. So this house is even older than that, and we definitely have some older finds. The very beginning of Tel Sheva is the Chalcolithic period, and a few more beautiful photos and more clouds. Now we made it to a little watchtower, so we can see the entire city with the houses, with the walls, with the bridge we talked about before. Another bridge. This is Hebron. This is the stream of Hebron. And the modern road. This is the road we took to get to Tel Sheva. And right in front of us here,